Just get out of where I live's like 5 minutes from the beach.
Behind the bookcase.
And just get the last few in.
Can I ask a very, very important question before you start, please?
Oh, I can only imagine. Go ahead.
Can somebody tell me where I can get a bloody haircut? Look at this.
I just had one this
and
morning.
get your wife to do it.
Right. So this
my wife does mine.
I asked your wife to do it for me a long time ago, Mark. Can't say what
she wouldn't talk to you, Paul.
You keep trying to take the conversation down, don't you, Paul?
Thank you, Paul.
So now, can we stop talking about Paul's lady's haircut and get on to the subject at hand? So there's quite a few of us come in. There's too many to mention. Milo, are we about ready?
No, they're still coming.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we still have to wait.
Okay, if we just do some small chat. So we're going to try and be a little bit more organised than the Future Print webinar where they had everybody in Zoom. I'm going to proper poke at Marcus today. Right, it was chaos. Robert Godwin, hello. Thank you for the virus you sent me yesterday.
I sent it to a lot of people.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And nobody over here got affected because it was your version of it, which wasn't very good. Just cracking on. Yeah, the numbers are popping up there. So, yeah, just wait for a few more people to come in. Hope everybody is well. Thomas, hello. I hope everybody is well in these strange, challenging times. We've got sun shining here in West London, but also we're coming out of lockdown.
Excuse me.
Who's flying?
That's Rob. That's Rob. Put Rob Ends on mute, will you?
It's not me. It's not me.
Was that a Spitfire? Was it? Sounded like one.
Yeah.
So it wasn't me. It was Warren.
So
always me.
Yeah, it always is you, yeah. For those of you that are new, this is something that we run weekly. It used to be bi-weekly in the early days. We run it for nearly a year now. It basically is just an online pub for us to get together and talk and shoot the shit and catch up, make sure everybody's safe, talk about topics. We've spoken about everything from print buyers to, yeah, excuse you, but everything really. And there's no real set format, but it is organised in such a way that we try and get everybody involved. So, you know, Marianne, welcome. So I'm glad that you've all joined us. We've got good numbers today. Tim Pepier, hello. Long time no see. So we're up to 54. Milo, is that okay?
Yeah, it is okay. I'm just admitting others.
Yeah.
But it's kind of slowing down now. So I think we are almost there, really.
Okay. If only we had a landlord who was a bit quicker at the bar, eh?
I can't say 55 people at once. But just a quick question, guys. If you could, or request, I don't know who wants to have a chat and who wants to discuss things and be more active. But for those who are here just to listen, if you could mute yourself, because there's a lot of noise coming out from everywhere. So if you just, by all means, if you want to have a chat, just unmute yourself and have your say. If that's okay.
Yeah. And those of you with cameras off, turn your cameras on so we can see you, because otherwise we'll think you're underage and you shouldn't be here. So come on, let's get started because we've been doing.
Yeah. I think we're all right now. Yeah.
If we go any slower, people are going to think it's a Future Print event. So welcome everybody. Glad to see you. Okay, this is the Print Pub, the Crown, on LinkedIn. If you don't follow us already, please follow us. Please get involved. Please come every week and join in the conversation. Thanks, George. Serge, yeah, thank you. Awesome. So, yeah, without further ado, hand over to Milo.
Yeah. So, Marcus, where are you? I have the first question to ask you, actually.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, I have to find you because I speak to you. So, the subject is future of print. So where does Future Print stand with the event we are taking part in? If you could just elaborate a little bit. And I mute the person who plays the sound.
Yeah, nice music.
Basically, theme of the event is adaptability. And the reason that's the theme is that we think it's a critical factor for this year. Last year was a kind of crisis management year. This year is really about adaptability. And I think we're starting to see the end of the zombie printer. The kind of the printer that doesn't like change, the printer that does the same thing all the time. And that's partly a force of economics, which, you know, I'm not happy about, but that's the reality. And that necessity is the mother of invention, as it were. So yeah, it's adaptability. It's about sort of kind of going, where are we now? What tools do we have at our disposal? And actually, the other good thing I think we need to kind of perhaps feel slightly optimistic about is there will be a boom within the next 6 to 7 months. And now's the time to get adapting, get ready for the boom, start creating value, start getting out there and readying your business, really. So yeah, that is the theme, adaptability. And we've had I think we have a couple of thousand registered people. We've got more engagement this time than the summit, which was much bigger. So don't know why particularly. I think we've done more to promote the event, perhaps invested more in marketing it, smaller event. Maybe that's why. But yeah, it's and maybe it's we're moving into a more optimistic phase and businesses are coming out of furlough. Maybe, don't know. But yeah, no, it's that's where we are with the event, really.
Okay.
Okay, Marcus, what about the future of print? Because that's an answer about your event. Where do you stand on where the print is actually going? Have you come to a conclusion?
Yeah, I think well, like I said, it's the end of zombies, because there's far too many of them in the print industry. Yeah, and probably like every industry. I think it's being forced now. I think the rise, we've seen an emergence of I think software starting to come to the fore on the strategic level, because people are realizing it can actually help them adapt using the kit they already have. Obvious thing to say, if you're not digitalized in some way as a business, then you're probably not going to be able to adapt at all or make any sense of the future. Yeah, I mean that's kind of where we see the markets. The obvious things, and all our research says is, you know, industrial printing's quite buoyant, packagings and labels quite buoyant. We know commercial print's tough, but then people are saying, oh, you know, the direct mail market's increasing. That's happy days, but I'm not sure if that's a temporary bubble or not really. And wide formats in a kind of difficult place as well. But yeah, I think there's lots to be positive about. But if you're a zombie, you're not going to make any use of it. You need to be adaptable.
So what exactly do you mean by a zombie print?
A zombie really is somebody who refuses to change, likes conformity, thinks they're an expert, even though the world's changed around them, probably hasn't done anything in the last 12 months to adapt at all. The kind of people that kind of go into hibernation instead of getting out there in the industry and are walking blindly into the future. So I think it's kind of crunch time. And if I was running a print business, I would be a shit printer. I've tried printing. It's not something I'd be very good at doing. And that wouldn't be my forte personally. But as somebody who observes, the future of this industry is technology, not production. It's driven by technology. Technology is driving this industry, always has and always will. And also, I think in part, this event's been more popular because we've had fewer printers speaking at it. Yeah, we've had kind of technology focus, and I think that's quite compelling. I think that's the reality. Technology is the future and is driving the business, all of the print industry. So I just sort of gobbed off with loads of opinion there.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go on, Calvin.
Not very interesting. Do you have any printers? That's why it's been better. Because purely printers have got an opinion as well.
I'm not. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe there's lots of other things, but I think technology and innovation is a driver of progress. Not let's do this because we've done this again and again and again. That doesn't excite people, doesn't interest people, doesn't motivate people.
I'm certainly not going to disagree because obviously I'm selling technology. Yeah. But where's it going to go then? Where are you going to go? I mean, you've done your 2 events now. We're coming out of lockdown. What's next for you guys?
I was wondering
We're
what's
ba-
gonna
we're
gonna
about-
recover. Yeah.
And Fraser, if my colleague Fraser wants to chip in, feel free, mate. Where are we going? Fraser and I are good at building communities. That's what we've done. We've worked together I've known Fraser longer than I've known my wife, which is quite an amazing fact. But
We
We've
both
always-
started in magazines,
Yeah,
so we
go on,
both have
you take
a
it.
history of being in
Yeah.
magazines, and so a lot of the people in this virtual room have been in the magazine world. So we understand about readership and circulation and all that kind of thing, and that's just been transferred, isn't it, to communities and I think all Marcus is saying, and there are printers here who are probably a bit pissed off that Marcus is saying that, but I think he's valid, isn't he? Because basically, just like anything in our world today, it's driven a lot by technology. The technology guys push us constantly. Why is it that Apple will, launch a new phone? We don't really need another bloody phone, but they'll come to the market with new technology and try and excite us with that. And that's what happens, isn't it? We get driven by the technology guys. So Marcus's point, I think, is valid, and that's that Future Print as a brand was always about could we do something that was creating a community so it spotted interesting new things in print, and that could come from the printers, but it often comes from the manufacturers. So that's what we're about, really.
See, for us, for a technology company, it's the customers that lead the printers and lead the technology. So I guess it's just a different way of looking at it.
No, you are right. You are right there. I mean, often, we're driven by a customer. Let's be honest. You will carry on doing what you do unless a customer says, Kelvin, we'd like to try and do this. Can you do it? Can you help us? Then you go, actually, we see if we can help you. And that's what we all do. We're sales. If you're a good salesperson, you tune into what your customer asks, don't you? And you go, yeah, of course we can solve that problem for you. Yeah, of course we can help you out there. I think what we're saying is that typically in our world of print, the technology guys are knocking on our door saying, here's a new bit of technology. Here's a new bit of technology. It can help you do this. It can help you do this. And then we try and persuade our customers that we can now solve their problem via this bit of technology. Not always, but often.
Yeah, and I think it's fairly accepted. If you look at the crossing the chasm thing, technology reaches a place before users do, when it's just a fact. That's not a radical idea, and it's not diminishing what production is to the mix. But I see a future where there may even not be printers, or a printer is something. And actually, I don't want to steal Gareth's point, because he was in a session yesterday and he mentioned some really interesting things. Gareth Ward is in this meeting somewhere, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Yeah. But you were talking to Mark yesterday, and you had made a couple of points of changes you've seen, Gareth, which I think is interesting, given the discussion point that we're having at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. It's not just technology. I was tapping into the chat, because if it were just about technology, there wouldn't be any letterpress printers left. And there are not many, but they're doing quite nicely. It's the same. Vinyl records exist and are going through something of a resurgence, even though that technology is pretty shit. In terms of they're pretty flaky, they're suspect to scratching, they're bulky to carry around, but they have something about them. They engage with you. You pick them up, you read them, and in terms of packaging printing, the packaging printing for a vinyl record is a piece of ephemeral print that people have still got, and it's for 50 years later. I've still got my Sgt. Pepper album with printing that still was done in Crawley 50 odd years ago. Not many other bits of packaging can say that. So it's a kind of horses for courses. Yes, the majority of the future is going to be about digital. It's going to be about technology. It's going to be about creating print that is relevant to the end users, using technology to its best advantage. But it's not entirely about that. You've got to be able to use it and understand it. Some of it, getting the timing right. The early guys who put in HP Indigos, or before they were HP Indigos, guys who put in Indigos in the early days had the best technology, the newest technology, but the damn stuff didn't work.
The point you were making yesterday, Gareth, was that you've seen, you know, Mark Hanley made the point. He said, I can't see people buying big analog machines. Why would they buy a big analog machine? And then you mentioned something about concierge.
Yeah, I mean, that's a future opportunity for people that ducking out. I mean, Deb came up with a name for it the other day. She called them Pinot Noir printers. So printer in name only, not operating in reality. Pinot Noir.
That name could strip. That name could.
Yeah.
Companies as
So
well.
that's copyright Deb.
Okay, let's open it up a little bit. So what else can help us recover? Mark, you raised the hand. So can you help a little bit, Mark Stevenson?
Oh, sorry. I was just responding to Gareth talking about letterpress printers because that's what I was, you see. But I'm so glad I moved on. But talking about technology, technology isn't an answer. It's just a means of getting somewhere. It's just a transportation to get to the goal, whatever that is. If we're talking about the future of print, then we need to talk about how it's used, what value it has, what it delivers for people. And I guess one of the questions is, I haven't got an answer to this, one of the questions is, where's that going? What is print going to deliver for people in the future once we get out of this mess that we're in, which is in the UK anyway? Bully for us, we're ahead. We're going to get out first before the rest of the world.
Yeah, well, Robert Godwin's mentioned there that on that point that the problem is printers are being led rather than leading. So tomorrow I'm talking to Tim Peppier, who's here today. Just bear with us a minute, Robert. Where we're talking about how we're reacting to the market because the customers are driving it. I don't think the printer is actually in a position to lead it. But like Milo said, does anyone have a comment on that? Does anyone want to open this out?
When you talk about the printer leading it, I think there are print companies out there that are leading what they do because they've taken the initiative to take the lead in certain things. I'm listening to the conversation and I'm thinking print industry is a little bit like the taxi industry fighting Uber, right? It's technology. We're in 2021. It's the way it is. We need to embrace it. Yes, you could have the old technologies as well. I mean, I haven't even learned them all yet and we're getting new ones, but it's a mix of everything. But I think we're trying to put things in a place and identify it and leave it somewhere and then work around it. What's wrong with just working and going with the flow a little and not trying to always identify? Inkjet's the new thing. How did that happen? Where did everything else go? Everyone just jumped on it and that's the path. Analog presses aren't going anywhere. We need them for packaging. We need them for certain things, volumes. I remember when digital came out and where did we all of a sudden have digital printing and conventional analog printing? To me, as a printer, printers print. I don't care if it's a label. I don't care if it's a mailer. I don't care if it's a box. We in our own industry have broken it down to a point where it's almost getting, I can't think of the word, but like we want to dissect it to, let's just go sell print and have fun. Why does it have to be so minute and detailed?
Good point. Kevin, you just made a good point in the chat.
Rob wants to mention, Rob, you raised your hand.
Yeah, Warren, I think the print industry has always been a hybrid industry filled with conventional and with digital. And I think the digital has always been helping them survive change and enter into new markets. And they've typically entered the digital market always with short run. It began with, when they were doing offset, in came the iGen, the Indigo, and they were doing short run page printing. And then the wide format replaced some of the screen printing. And now we have companies like MGI and Skodex entering into the traditional embossing market. And so the question I have for the panel or the group is, what lifelines do we have that we can suggest to commercial printers today, knowing full well that the growth markets right now are packaging, labels, and textile? Well, textile, I can tell you right now, in the commercial print market would need trade shows to survive. So let's focus on packaging and labels. What do we have to suggest to them to be able to take advantage of the digital market in those areas?
Anyone want to respond to that?
Sorry, can you say that again and a little shorter?
Oh.
Hang on.
Sorry,
A
okay.
quick
I'll come-
response is this: there
What was the
are
question?
technologies and ability everywhere. Stop listening to manufacturers with one siloed viewpoint. Get hold of somebody who knows different technologies, or somebody who can give you a viewpoint. Chris Jordan's very good at this. He has a very independent view on it. Stop talking to one manufacturer, spread yourself thin, and let the people that supply the kit do the hard work for you.
Chris, do you want to comment?
Yeah, if I could say one. Go ahead.
Do you want to comment?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Chris. So, yeah, it's fairly easy. Commercial printers need to get better at what they do. Nothing to do with their kits. They need to sell better. They need to understand what their customers want. They need to have a USP rather than just price, quality, and delivery. Has always been. No change.
Personally, I think we should give them more credit than that. I mean, I've known an awful lot of commercial printers that have survived shitstorms throughout the last 2-3 decades. And they usually do it by extending what they can offer their existing customers. And that usually involves short-run printing, digital, and whether it means short-run embellishment, short-run packaging, which might be cardstock, to do folding. They now have cutters. They can print on thicker stocks with some of the new production devices. Labels, they can now enter short-run market labeling and augment some of the business that the brand owners might carry, because brand owners are committed to large, long runs, which are more traditional presses. Perhaps they could complement it with shorter run, maybe do versioning. They can do that with packaging. All of these are ideas that we can help commercial printers with. And I think we should be a little more optimistic about their survival.
Okay, so as a commercial printer, right?
Yeah.
The manufacturers, and I hope whoever's listening, I love you all. They're all useless. You're all useless. You
Well,
sell
we hear
it.
that.
No, sorry. Let me
that many times.
please, let me finish. I've spent millions and millions of dollars.
I know.
And I've tried to be cutting edge in a lot of areas. And a lot of manufacturers that think they're cutting edge, once they sell you, they have no idea about the edge. Right.
Okay, so the question to
So
you, Warren, is what
yes.
would you suggest your compatriots or other commercial printers, what would you suggest to them what they should buy? Because you're not a manufacturer, neither am I.
Well, I'm not even going to suggest to them what to buy. I think everyone has to look at what their potential market is and decide what they want, not listen to the manufacturers about what are the hot markets, because all those hot markets turn really shit when everyone jumps on them and lowers the price, right?
Forget about buying, then suggest something at
No, but
Can we get a manufacturer in? I mean, we're talking about them, but there's some in the room. And I think.
Okay, I'm going to give you an example. Xerox. I dealt a lot with Xerox. They go put boxes. When I was with Ursula Burns at lunch, and she said to me, "What's one thing that we could do to help you better?" I said, you could teach your reps to work better with the commercial printers to understand what they're doing and how to cost it, because no one gets the same price. The pricing on the street after. The whole thing's a mess.
So Warren,
I agree with you more.
Swiped from technology into the manufacturers, but we've got some manufacturers. Kevin, you're a manufacturer, and you just made a comment about linking technology to the customer's expectations. So in the chat,
so I think
because you're a manufacturer, and you know, how do you feel about? I mean, these guys are ripping you apart here. So how do you feel about that?
No, because I agree, because traditionally we've been doing, and everybody's been doing, a push model. So how does it work is we come up with the technology and then we sell it to you. We say your customers are going to love it. And then hope to God, you know how to go sell it to your customers. And if you don't do that well, then you don't do that well. So I think one of the smart things we should be doing as manufacturers, and what we've been doing for the past couple of years, is we're actually not even going to the customers, to the printers. You go to their customers and you educate them on what's possible. So you're going to the agencies, you're going to the brands, you're going to the print buyers and saying, hey, there's new tech out there. You know, here's some of our customers if you want to talk to them, but here's what's going to be possible. So there's a miscommunication, there's a break in that link between the manufacturers and our customers' customers, which are, you know, the printer's customers, that isn't being responded to. So I think that that's number one. And number two, an interesting point I think we should make, because we're talking about the future of print, is that number one, we need to define what print is. And number two, what do we mean by future? Do we mean 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Because some of the stuff that you guys should be looking at now is that everything that can be printed will be printed. We're working on technologies that could print phones, that are print. They're actually printing steaks now. The electronics printing is now becoming a thing. At what point in time is that going to go from just ink on paper to actually manufacturing and creating a manufacturing system? Because let's be honest, printers are the best custom manufacturers in the world. There's nobody better.
By the way, when I talk to the we have some amazing commercial printers in the world that have taken the industry head on, have embraced everything, invest money, technologies, do the R&D. Those are the industry leaders. Those are the ones that we look up to. The problem is the other 90% of the industry that's all over the place. We don't talk enough about the good people, first of all, because we generally look to the bulk of what's going on. And the bulk is it's all over the place.
Okay,
and printers are afraid.
Can you put yourself on mute? Do you know how to do that? Can't? Could you put yourself on mute, please? Could you keep coming up? Awesome. Thanks very much. Are we not talking ourselves, sort of just on what Kevin said there, are we not talking ourselves into a dead end here? Should it be the customer that's coming up with the ideas and telling us the applications? Shouldn't the customer be leading this? Why are we saying that we should be looking towards the manufacturers? Why aren't we talking to the customers? Gary Howard's here. Actually, Tim Pepiot is here as well. So there's two experienced, well-mature sales guys in the pub today. Gary Howard must be 70, 85, something like that now. This guy taught me how to sell. Gary, don't you think we should be listening to the customers more?
Yeah, I'm about 5 years younger than you, Kelvin. Well, I don't know. I think from my perspective, it's about, if we wait for the customers, then things will just contract and contract and contract. What we've got to do is find solutions that are desirable to the customer. And how do we, the thing that's been vexing me for the last 2 or 3 years is, how do we compete? How do we get a share of the digital wallet, the digital spend wallet? So all of this money that's going on PPC, and it's considerable, how do we get to a point where we can actually change the dynamic and make print far sexier than it was previously? And I think the one thing from my perspective is that this pandemic in many ways has helped us with that, because with the resurgence of the QR code after 23, maybe 24 years now of living in the shadows, marketeers, it's become a practical tool to enable people to go from a physical product into a virtual experience. And if you see it across the board, if even people like Amazon or and one of the really interesting case studies for me is when Toys R Us went belly up in the UK, Amazon started sending out a toy catalogue to mirror the Toys R Us catalogue, and to get people to scan a QR code that went into the toy section within Amazon, so that they could start taking some of that Toys R Us business. That's the thing that I find interesting, is that type of innovation, that we apply stuff that's already in place, but we kind of symbiotically, like I said, mirror what we're doing with what's happening in a digital environment.
Oh, good point. Well made. Can, sorry, could you just mute yourself, please, again, mate? Sorry, you keep going off mute. Thanks very much. Awesome. Tim Pepiot, have you got a comment to say on that? Sorry, who wants to talk?
Me.
Go on then.
Hi, Sharon.
Oh, go on, Sharon.
It's Joanne.
Yes, it's Sharon/Joanne. So I think there's a lot of discussion about technology and not a lot of discussion about marketing, because the marketers are the innovators. So for example, what Gary was talking about with the QR codes, those solutions all come up with marketers. So from my perspective, the way to change or disrupt the print industry for the future is to actually turn the salespeople into marketers, or actually hire people with marketing experience to sell, because it's the marketing where all the innovation comes. It's not about the technology. The technology follows what the marketers want to do.
Sharon, if I could say something on that, some of the most interesting printers I've seen in the world have been when creative agencies and printers actually merge their businesses together. And the
Yes.
stuff coming out of those printers, and I think that
You're on mute, Kevin.
Yeah.
I think that's the near-term future for printers who really want to get to the next level, is how do we merge creative and manufacturing together under one roof so that you can really take advantage of both sides.
Exactly, because I was actually having a discussion with Joanne after one of the last calls, and I said to her, you know what, we could actually become print salespeople because we have worked in marketing for so many years and we understand marketing better than anyone else. And because we have always been the people buying the print, we actually know what marketers want.
Yeah, but
so I think there needs to be a shift.
Sharon, do marketeers really work? Do they work? I mean, do they do any effort? It's not a real job, is it?
Well, it isn't really, but without marketers, you don't have anyone to buy your print.
I know, I'm teasing you. I'm teasing you. Tim Pepier, who's a print buyer. Tim, you've bought and sold print. We've got a conversation tomorrow on future print as well. I know you've got an opinion.
Yeah, I mean, very interesting. I've listened to a couple of people talk about customer journey, digital transformation. Start with what are we trying to transform? I wrote a note here. How can we become invaluable to the client? And how can we have a single point of innovation? Printers are investing in things. And when that innovation runs out, I many moons ago worked with a piece of kit called the Chromacom, which has been taken over by the Mac. I think people remember Cytex. It gets taken over. There were 4 or 5 channels for the marketing department to deal with. There's now 40 odd channels. So what is it that they're buying? What is it? They want a solution, to be a digital printer, a web printer, printing on plastic, whatever it is, it doesn't get any bandwidth with the marketing people. They aren't the people driving innovation. Printers are, repro companies and technology. But it's no use just saying, this is a great new bit of kit. You're going to get picked off. They're looking for, I'll use one example, Linny. They've got digital screens, they've got some technology. Whether it's good or bad, they're selling that as a solution. I fear for the printer who is, and a couple of guys said they've moved left and right and given more to the customer. You've got to start with that customer journey first. What's going to make us invaluable? What's going to stop us getting picked off by a print buyer? Williams Lee controlled GSK's print. Was it well done? No. Were the print buyers excellent? They were. But, they had platforms and things like that. So they're giving them a solution. It's just a tiny part. I know it's an important part to everyone on this call, but out of £70 million spent in the UK alone for consumer healthcare, 1.5 million was print. And then it was data and digital. The people who had real value in that business, were coming up with ways that you could proof at home, you could look at shelf at home, and it dovetailed in. There's some really skilled people out there, on this call. That we've notoriously, in the print trade, I started as a machine minder. We've got our new kit, we've got an edge, let's go to market. There's got to be much more collaboration. Technology, printers, repro, people like Oliver, they've got a unique selling point. Is it the best? No, but clients buy it because they're relying on it as an overall service. Sorry, that was wrong.
I saw Mark, you raising hands for the last 5 minutes. Marky Parker, please.
He seems to have gone.
Sorry, I muted myself.
Yeah.
I know it's one of those rare occasions when I muted myself. I just wanted to come back on whoever was saying about the digital wallet, because I sometimes think we don't look at where we fit into things and how we fit holistically. So if you look at SEO and pay-per-click now, the cost of those is rising hugely. You want to go in one of the popular sectors, you're paying £8 for a click often. And yet, how much is that compared to a piece of direct mail, which according to all the industry studies has far much more of an impact? And yet, as so many printers are going out and still selling print rather than selling an alternative as a way to get through to customers. So it's been an interesting discussion about all these technologies, but as I said in the chat, your average print buyer doesn't care whether you've got the latest inkjet press or a potato. They want to get a result from what they're buying. Yeah, and I know there'll be a few professional print buyers out there who have their head in their hands at me saying that, but the average person who's in charge of print spend doesn't care. So we need to stop looking inwards and start thinking about it from the customer's point of view, I think. And the digital wallet is one way to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Robert Godwin and then Gary Howard.
Hi. Yeah, I'd like to hear from the manufacturers. This has been an issue of mine for a long time about how the research is done on your part to determine what kind of technology needs to be developed. That's something that takes years to do. And there must be some inquiry into the market that says this is something that will attract attention, will be effective as a marketing tool. And that's the kind of research that I think absolutely needs to be shared with the print buyers, the selling teams, so that they understand, oh, this is what attracted them and these people responded this way. That needs to be part of my sales messaging. And I'm curious why printers aren't doing more of that. Excuse me, why manufacturers aren't doing more of that. That should be a rich source of information for increasing sales and frankly, increasing a more valid demand for the equipment that's being manufactured. So I'd love to hear some feedback from the manufacturers themselves.
I don't think we have too many in the pub today who could answer that. Does anybody want to respond to that?
Mark Stevenson raised a hand, and I saw Gary Howard also.
Yeah,
so.
I'll. This is a personal opinion, okay, not necessarily though that of my employer. But when I see industry research that says here's a new brilliant market and here's all the research that proves it, I take it with a pinch of salt because I've never seen a negative one. I've never seen one that says, don't go in this market, it's crap, after you've spent your £2,500 buying the report in the first place. So I'm very skeptical of stuff like that. I will pay for research that says this was sold in that time period by these vendors, or this was bought by these people at that time. But anybody who tells me how lucrative and what the CAGR is, because that's their favorite phrase, I'm sorry, I start switching off.
But that doesn't really reach the point, because you're talking about if you want the proof of the sales that have occurred, you're probably 2 to 3 years late in the process of somebody within the manufacturing group looking at the market and saying, I identify some kind of opportunity for this kind of technology to sell. And they gambled millions of dollars to do that. Nobody developed a texture, like a Scodex or an MGI machine or things of those nature, for a couple $100 or a couple £100. They spent millions on it and a lot of time. So what was going on during that time that said, we really need to get this out there because printers are going to be able to sell into this market? They knew it well ahead of time.
Yeah, I look at research to look at what has happened, but I wouldn't necessarily use that to try and predict the future. If I'm going to look at what the future is, then I'd rather work with somebody I trust rather than buy some report that somebody's already generated to try and sell as many as they can to the gullible people who think it's the truth.
Robert, I could probably answer your question pretty well, because I was there when we invented the jet varnish. Sometimes you have these big companies with lots of, millions of dollars in research. Sometimes it's entrepreneurial gut instinct. We developed the digital embellishment 100% by accident. It was 4 weeks before Drupa 2008, and we were trying to make a 4-color inkjet press work 4 weeks before Drupa. I mean, that's like, it's shipping in like a week. We couldn't get the colors to register. Our CEO said, F it, let's just put some clear ink in there and call it a spot UV coater. And then all of a sudden the reaction was remarkable. So we went into it as an accident. Sometimes you back into these things. Sometimes you hit on something. You see the reaction from the people. You get the right reaction. You go, okay, we're onto something. So it's not always something where you can't predict the future. But when you have that gut instinct that, okay, this is going to work as a manufacturer, sometimes it works. You just got to follow it.
Okay, thank you very much, Gary Howard. You'll be waiting.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
sorry,
can hear you.
sorry. I was just trying to unmute myself. Just going back to what Matthew talked about. It's you're absolutely right. It's about proving an ROI in what we do, and what we can now do, and it is okay. But we're in direct marketing. That's predominantly what we do. There's other areas as well. But so we get a household line of data. We then generate a dynamic QR code. We also build in other information into that fabulous piece of technology, and we measure engagement. But on top of that, where does that QR code take the recipient to? Is it to an e-commerce site? Is it to a virtual experience? Is it to a sign-up form? Is it to donate? Is it whatever it's going to be? We need to be able to track it all the way through that journey. And the fact that we as printers suddenly think the most important thing about technology is what the next machine is going to do, from my view, is totally irrelevant. It's got to be something that is actually going to change our clients' world. And coming up with solutions ahead of that game, getting ahead of that curve, is the thing we probably should be spending more time on. Personally.
Okay, thank you very much. Paul, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just going to, 11 years ago, I was working at a dealership where I was in a showroom with a Ricoh guy, and it was when they'd launched the Pro C651, the first proper production print that they did. And I was messing about with the Fiery, and I noticed on the Fiery that you could make a custom length. And we discovered that you could print a length up to 1.2 meters long. Why would you want to do that on a digital press? Nobody's going to want to do that. So him and I, we had a bit of time and we messed about with it. And then we came back the following week and we printed something 700 millimeters long. Fast forward, so as a dealer, we decided to sell it, make it available to our customers because we were servicing the machines ourselves. Fast forward 3 months and I was in the office. I got a phone call from the marketing director of Ricoh UK, who was effing and blinding down the phone at me about the fact that we were selling something that his direct salesperson people weren't selling. I knew right then, as a result of his nastiness, that we were onto a winner. And how has that panned out since then? Who's doing it now? Every single bloody one of them. So the point is, it's not what the manufacturers think it can do, it's how the operator or somebody that's playing with it can translate that into a sellable, profit-building resource that they can sell that nobody else can yet do, and make the most of it while they can.
Oh, can we just, I'm just going to come across to Jonathan Malone McGrew, because you've been waiting really patiently. Sorry about that. Before we do,
no, I'm good. People who know me know I'm super loud.
Before we do that, is that an 80s haircut you've got going on there, mate? Paul Stead. Anyway, Jonathan, yeah, sorry.
At least I've still got a fringe, son. Eh?
So I think it's a really good conversation. I wanted to just loop back to what Robert was saying, because I've seen Robert speak before, so good to see him again. So from my perspective, I've grown up in software technology around all of the print. Many of you probably know Pat, and I'm her son, so literally born into the industry. And I think what's important to remember, though, is that you have different stages of printers who are looking, not every printer is looking to be the most innovative, right? And I think about this because we have some other businesses in our family ecosystem. And I think it depends on who you're trying to sell to. Where the future of print is not necessarily the most innovative and next thing. There's a whole ton of print that is necessary, beneficial, direct mail, that doesn't necessarily have to have the next, whiz bang thing to it for printers to be successful and profitable. So I think there's a balance there, and there's a cultural shift that is still happening. Because we work in software, one of the things I notice is that the print technology outpaces the actual physical hardware devices outpace what people can manage in their production environments on a day-to-day basis. We continue to see faster and faster machines, but people not utilizing them. And I think it's down to some cultural aspects of what we've done every day. How do you get people who have done something every day to shift and become like, going all the way back, Marcus, to your zombie thing? The challenge is, and if you, as you look back on the businesses you run, you can't force a business to become innovative if the culture is not there. So then you have a cultural shift you have to make. And I see that as one of the biggest drivers of that was the pandemic forcing people to get out of their comfort zone. So I almost wonder if we're going to see this Renaissance era of exactly what Robert's looking at. You know, are the manufacturers going to say, wow, we saw a lot of people do X out of pure need to keep their businesses alive and some didn't? Are they going to take that data and try to start building stuff that they think will be the next generation? But more than that, are we going to go back to bad patterns and bad habits in the industry? Or are we going to throw the mainframes out the back door? Are we going to stop, you know, messing with things manually? Are we going to do things that technology now lets us to do? Because let's face it, 10 years ago, this would have been hard, right? And the print industry has notoriously been like the Titanic. Trying to get it to turn has been hard, right? And so I think it's an amazing industry, but I think the thing that I see every day when I work with customers and work with people selling, because we sell through most of our partners, is that the people working with the environments are not ready. They just they're not ready for big change. And how do you convince them that they should change when their businesses are continuing to, you know, do business? And I think that the pandemic has done the most for that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense, and I would agree, but challenge part of it. But has anyone else got an opinion? Does anyone want to come in and follow Jonathan?
Well said, Jonathan. I just want to say that. But that point that Jonathan's making, I think the walls have come down. The kind of people don't like change. We like change if we win the lottery or we get a tax rebate, but most of us don't like change. So what COVID's done is it's thrust it upon us. It's like, if you don't change, you might not earn enough money to keep going. So it's kind of like I said, that adaptability, it's kind of do or die time now. But the good thing is this boom is coming, right? So it's not, we just skipped. We went to bed in 2020 and woke up in 2030. And also that acceleration we're not going to go back to the speed before COVID. This speed is now, right? It's just going to continue to get faster. So it's kind of comfort zone time, small steps, make mistakes. I like the point Kevin made about you invent stuff, you put it out into the market and people see another purpose for it. It's different to what you originally thought. That's progress. You can't buy a report that tells you what to do next.
Yeah,
they don't exist. Trial and error is critical to adaptability. If you don't push yourself forward, you will not survive.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm very new to this group. Just my 5 cents, because I'm listening to you all, and it's very, very interesting. From my point of view, you know, I'm with this industry since 1980, and we tend to be, everyone in this industry, we tend to be in this technology bubble, and we're talking about digital and this and that. I would rather want to watch it from a consumer's perspective. You know, if anybody remembers, you know, when digital printing first hit the market, everybody was talking about personalization, and everybody got very excited. Oh, you got to see this personalized catalogs, this and that. And it never really, you know, pulled on. We're still at 7, 8, 9% digital all over since the last 10 years. People are not going for it. We're printing digital just out of completely different reasons by now. I think we should just watch it from a consumer's perspective. What does it do to him? Whether it's potato printing or digital, the consumer is not interested in that. He just wants something, however that is being produced. And I'm very much agreeing with what Sharon was saying. It's more driven from a marketing perspective, the whole thing. And everybody, for instance, now looking at packaging and sees this as, you know, the sort of like the only way out, because packaging really takes on, also because of COVID. But if you look, for instance, at packaging, what are the scares, or, you know, what could be disruptive? When you look, for instance, at people ordering from Amazon or so, maybe in 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you're ordering all your food and everything from Amazon. Does that really has to be in a fancy packaging? Or maybe 5 years, 10 years from now, we're all watching through a Google Glass, looking at the packaging and does all these fancy things on a white box. This could be a disruptive technology. And I think as being in the printing industry or in the digital industry, I'd rather say, we should have a look at that rather than discussing whether it's digital or analog.
No, that's good. That's well, a good point.
So another big problem in the industry is really the cost. And I don't hear ever anyone talking about it. For the printer to embark on some of these initiatives, be it hardware, software, the financial resources, the human resources that are needed to get through it, it's scary for us. We are buying big pieces of equipment for a lot of money, signing our houses and our lives away, praying that we're going to make some money. In doing it, I found that the manufacturers weren't always there to help support me emotionally, financially, or with product to learn to get there. When we put the first iGen 5 in and it did all this stuff, Xerox talked a mean game, but you know what? It didn't do half of what it said. So what do we do after? When we take some of the, and I love the MGI equipment, but you got, Kevin, you had a rep that was trying to sell me a piece saying to me, the work will come. I laughed in their face saying, I'm not spending I'm not spending $450,000. So right away, your salesperson should have been shocked because it was a bad approach. And that hurt you, the business, right?
No, I agree.
How do you get two printers in the same area, maybe the manufacturer, to work together to test, to try and get somewhere with it? Things are moving so fast for technology. I haven't learned the old stuff and I'm spending money to upgrade to work faster with less work. It's very scary
Warren,
on our end. Yeah.
We ran into an issue where because we were doing things digitally for the embellishment at such a cheap price, the issue was that the printers didn't know how to sell it. And they were selling it way too low. So we had to institute a sales training program for our customers to teach them how to go out. We went on sales calls with them to teach them how to sell the stuff, how they should be looking at pricing it, not trying to, commoditize this thing that doesn't need to be commoditized. Because at the end, it was a sales issue that they didn't know how to sell it, and they were selling it at a much, much too low price that they should have been.
Every manufacturer should have those meetings in groups with their customers, bring them in a room. It's not about, it's like the oil companies. Gas is the same price on every corner, but collusion is against the law. So it's not about collusion. It's about teaching and educating so everyone understands. The companies that do well are the ones that go out with high margin to sell because they're selling the service and the solution, right? Xerox, and I'll use Xerox because it's Xerox, but that whole click mentality, I would put an iGen in, the guy down the road put an iGen, and I'm selling it at 80 cents a click. For everything factored in, the other guy's at 13 cents.
Okay,
right?
thank you very much, Warren.
If Xerox doesn't teach them, they're going to lose me. Then they're going to be nowhere.
Cool. Tony, you mentioned that. Tony, please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to throw a sort of a couple of things into it that's going to be disruptive in itself. I've been around in the print for a long time, started my own business in the early 70s. So it shows you how long I've been around. And it's always been about disruption. In the early days, it was about going from letterpress to litho and then going on to quick printing. It was amazing. We weren't considered proper printers because we did it the same day instead of 3 weeks. Imagine this is that if you equate the printing industry, and we have to define what print is. I was having a back chat there with Gareth, and it was interesting that the perception is that it's just ink on paper. But imagine this, if you take Kodak, one of the top 10 brands in the world some 20 years ago, they actually identified digital photography. And today, photography is 100 times bigger than it was 20 or 30 years ago. We take thousands of photographs. So photography hasn't died, but you wouldn't want to be in the film business. Print is not dead, but you wouldn't want to be in the ink on paper business. If you use that analogy, the future is going to be disruptive. There's technologies that are going to come about. In the early days when I was in print, forget about which technology we were using, but 90% of the clients and customers used to come to us and go, look, we're setting up a shop, we're starting a business, we want to do marketing, we want to build up customers, and we helped them achieve that. The trouble is, over the last 20 years, print has got very much commoditized because people have been spent so much time looking on the tools of the job, whether we're going to do it digitally, how much a click is, what paper cost is, that they've lost the purpose of print. Print was all about communication. It was one of the major factors that took us out of almost the dark ages into the industrial age and onto modern thing. It still has that potential. But here's the point, and I think if we're going to discuss the future of print, you have to think about what the hell are we going to invoice? If we don't invoice ink on paper, it's very difficult to see how we're going to pay for the machines and how we're going to keep going and pay for the rent. But those are the questions we're going to have to start addressing. What is it that we can do to become so sticky with our customers that we become part of their workflow processes, we become part, almost as an integral part of their marketing avenue, because that's the real power of print. Print is not going to die. It's just constantly going to evolve. And the trouble is a lot of the printers, because they've got hungry machines to feed and rents to pay and people to pay, they're looking to keep those things going. And we can't do it. No more than Kodak could keep on with film, even though they invented digital.
There's lots of people agreeing with you, Tony. Tim Peppier, you've mentioned about bringing it together, you know, where printers bring print and innovation together in one industry, in a single industry. You're on mute, mate. You gotta help the older guys help with buttons and that. He's on a Mac. You can tell he's on a Mac.
I don't think you can look at print in isolation. Certainly the customers don't. You know, it's part of a multi-channel world now. You know, much as we'd like it to be. You know, I started my career as a machine minder, thoroughly enjoyed it. I can't remember who made the point. You know, we went from, it was a new innovation. We went from letterpress to litho to, you know, there's been a great deal of advancement in the industry, but that's not the way that customers look at it. They just see it as one point. If you look at my previous employer, GSK, they're building an ecosystem, and I think it is a benefit, or it could be a benefit to the print industry. There's going to be creative, they've got a consolidated view for media, and then they've got a production ecosystem, and they'll plug in whoever's got the hottest new piece of technology or innovation. But there are, you know, do I think there's there's room for print management to be that link? I don't think so. I think direct manufacturers feeding into that ecosystem is far more cost effective. I mean, basically, you know, and I said this to GSK, they're paying 25% for a brokerage fee, and you don't need that when they bring in a piece of technology, sorry to swear, Kelvin, like ITG, which can, you know, absorb all those different suppliers and technology and bring it all together under a single view. So yeah, you just can't look at it in isolation. So again, make the point, you can bring it all together, but you've got to partner with a technology company. You've got to partner with other providers. Otherwise, you're not invaluable. You just get picked off. Was it Warren's point? You know, he spends millions of pounds on kit. He's got to sweat that asset. And when that part of the market goes down for a while, you know, where else is his revenue going to come from? Now, I don't know his business. He may be big enough to absorb that, but with price is every year under threat from procurement departments, of which I was one. It's not going to get any easier. So you've got to give the customers a reason to be with you all the time.
Sharon, you raised your hand.
Me?
Yeah, you, Sharon.
Yeah, so I'd like to respond to both Tony and Tim with regards to the customers. And the only way to keep your customers is to build your brand, because the brand today is the only thing that differentiates you. You know, if you look at any product today, whether you're selling hardware technology, software technology, they all do exactly the same. You know, 10 and 20 years ago, we all had differentiators. So you could sell your product based on your differentiator. But today, if you put your product side by side with your competitors, it does exactly the same thing. So the only differentiator is your brand. And if you have a brand that your customers are endeared to and connected to, then they will keep coming back to you, even if your price is higher and even if your technology isn't that good.
I'm
Once they've
sorry.
got you, they've got you.
I'm sorry, but brand is never going to take the place of function, and it's got to solve a problem. You listen to all the marketing individuals, and they're very bright people. They don't have the time to do it. What is the pain point? What is your brand or what is your product or service going to solve for me? Now, I was very lucky to get technology providers beating on the door, and some of them are fantastic. Some of the recognition of shelf technology, and I mean, it's just amazing. But they were solving a problem. So no logo or brand building will solve that. You've got to get closer to the customer and find out what you're going to solve for them.
Well, of course you're solving the problem for the customer, but you're all solving the same problem because you all do exactly the same thing. So you need a differentiator, because the technology is the technology. Put you and your competitor side by side, you can both solve the same problem. The question is, who's the customer going to come to?
Maybe.
So actually, I have an example of that. We have customers, everybody who does embellishment does embellishment. We tell our customers to copyright whatever the offering is going to be on their embellishment, the digital embellishment, as its own thing and their own brand, so that when the bids come out and that brand actually makes itself into the bids, it has to go 100% to that customer. So by being able to brand what you do as independent, as special, and trying to get that brand up, you actually turn it into a sales tool.
Right, because you've now just created a differentiator for yourself, even though your competitor does exactly the same thing, but you have elevated whatever that is that you've done, and plus you've endeared them to you, and they're going to be loyal to you.
And they don't know what else it's called. They as far as they know, that, for example, Warren, your company was called come on, help me out here.
Pizzazz.
Zazzle?
I'm trying to forget the name of it, but it's Pizzazz.
Pizzazz. Imagine you called it Pizzazz Print.
Yeah.
And you had a very special, unique way of doing it. And even though everybody else could do it, nobody else knew what Pizzazz Print was, because you kept that ingredient secret. That's the whole point, is by being able to use that brand, even though other people could be doing the same thing, as you mentioned, Sharon, by creating that kind of uniqueness. The print buyer goes, I don't know it's too complicated. I just know this guy. He calls it Pizzazz Print, and that's it. That's what I want. That's the thing that I wanted because my customers love it.
Exactly. I think, again, you guys are focusing so much on the technology, and you're forgetting, and I've said this before, that people buy from people they know, like, and trust. And the technology is secondary. In fact, the technology is invisible to the sale, because the fact that the technology works is just implied if they know, like, and trust you.
The problem is, Sharon, how do you say that when a lot of tenders now are primarily technology focused, when you have to integrate into a system and you have to provide efficiencies that are technology led? It's difficult to argue that against what is actually being asked for in the market.
Have you ever noticed, though, that the tender bids tend to lean towards one manufacturer? And it's typically, there's a bias that Sharon's already talking about. They have a dedicated person that they trust, so that they write their tender bid exactly to fit into that technology.
Exactly. So the tender bids are a little bit biased, and they're either going based on price, which you can never win on price.
So tenders is a whole other topic of conversation, because all those RFPs, most of them are nonsense. Most companies know who they want to deal with first. You make companies go out like us and spend hours and hours and dollars and breaking things down. There's even a little line at the bottom of the tender that says anything you submit to us is our information after. So it's kind of like sucking all the information out of you and then tossing you somewhere else after. It's just the whole thing is really scary, because we should be working with the manufacturer, software, hardware, and we should be direct to the customer. We shouldn't have a middle person either selling, but I think we all have to come together. Half the people that I sold, never cared what equipment I had, what I ran it on, or where I did it. The brands, I think there's some we talk brands a lot, but our industry is not made up of brands. The most of the print companies are small, medium, not dealing with brands. I'm tired of hearing brand. What about the 5-10 person operation that makes up our industry for the majority? How do we help them? Right? The brands just beat us down. The brands become the volume and the commodity because the brand knows you want the volume. You're going to give them the price.
Yeah, but Warren, even the small 5-10 person, everybody's a brand. Joe's Plumbing Shop down the road.
I understand. But I hear you.
You're thinking big brand.
I'm thinking because so when I talk to other printers, they think big also because that's what brand has been. We have to find a way to break it down so the small guy doesn't feel so scared of the brand. Like we get it.
Warren, you're talking about selling into a big brand, which is great because we all want to have big brands as our customers. But
yes,
the that you are selling to, you're not selling to the brand, you're selling to a person. So if you build the relationship with that person to get them to know, like, and trust you, then you're selling into the brand.
Again, brand has taken on a lot of different meaning is what I'm saying. And not everyone really understands what the word brand is in particular situations. So for a lot of people, unlike us sitting here who get it because every week we're together, most of our industry is not sitting down like we are and getting educated. That's the bigger problem. We are all the converted.
Well, the people that aren't sitting down and getting educated are going to turn into Kodak. Because Kodak said, you know, we don't need to go digital because we have a very strong balance sheet. And
I'm not right. It's how do we start a message or what kind of a group starts the message where it's almost an independent group, not associated or affiliated with manufacturers and whatnot. Our industry is really strange these days, right? Everyone, there all kinds of talk. No one really knows. Everybody's assuming. It's like watching financial analysts talk about. You have one guy who says we're headed for a boom market, and you have another guy who says we're headed for like a bear market. And then the host is sitting there going, I covered both ends. And then people walk away going, what are we doing? It's just a weird time.
We are well into overtime now. We're 10 minutes past the hour. We've been going over an hour. This has been fantastic. It's been great having everybody from all over the world join us. We've had people from third world countries such as Scotland trying to get into the EU. A bit welcome to them. A special welcome for Paul Stead's hair, which has just got better and better throughout the evening. Get a haircut, mate. The 80s are over. Tonight I've been drinking V-Press beer, the beer of choice, and labelled by Technology-Led Solutions. V-Press, the company, supports over 5,000 brands worldwide. I thought I'd just mention that as a little plug. We're here every week. We don't do it because we're V-Press. We do it to make sure everybody's all right. And we like the banter. We like the conversation, the discussion. Thank you, everybody, for getting involved. Those people who've stood up and argued and spoken, mainly Warren, thank you so much. He's here every week. He should have his own show. This has been... Listen, the important thing here is to make sure that everybody is safe and well. We ask you to follow the pub on LinkedIn. We're here at 3:30 UK time every week. I hope this has been a really good lesson for Marcus on how to run a Zoom call because he failed today. Come on, come back. Come back. You're on mute, mate. You're on mute. It's not working. You're on mute. It doesn't work. All right. He had a try. Everyone, be safe. Come back next week. Stay in touch. Follow the pub on LinkedIn. We're going to keep bringing you content and keep this argument going. Everybody, cheers. Be safe.
Cheers. Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Thanks.